Of Joseph in Egypt, and we ended the last time when he stood before Pharaoh to interpret the dream that Pharaoh. Do you hear me better now? Thank you. So let us see what Pharaoh said, what Joseph told Pharaoh about his dream. So let us display, let's go to Genesis chapter 41. Genesis 41 and verse 28. Thank you, Mark. Genesis 41 and verse 28. You have it right displayed right there in the wall. This is the thing which I have spoken. Who is speaking here? Joseph. He's speaking to Pharaoh. This is the thing which I have spoken unto Pharaoh, what God is about to do, he shows unto Pharaoh. Behold, there come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt. A lot of crops, a lot of food. For 7 years. 30. And there shall arise after them 7 years of famine. And all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine shall consume the land. What's meant by consume? Destroy. Remember the Dust Bowl was here in the United States in the Midwest in the 1931 and destroyed all the fields and pasture in the Midwest, which from Texas to Arkansas, it's the same thing. Of course, it lasted couple of years. Imagine 7 years without rain, without anything planted. 31. And the plenty shall not be known in the land by reason of that famine following, for it shall be very grievous, very, very bad, very awful. And for that the dream was doubled unto Pharaoh twice. The Pharaoh dreamed that twice. So he told him the same. It is because the thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass. Now therefore, as Joseph is talking here, now therefore let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. Why? What he's going to do? 34. Let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land, and take up the 5th part of the land of Egypt in the 7 plenteous years. 5th part is what? 20%. 20% of every year of the crops in Egypt, he will store it for the 7 years of drought or famine. 35 is a very, very, very important verse, and we'll stop there for some time. 35, and let them gather all the food of those good years that come, and lay up corn under the hand of Pharaoh, and let them keep food in the cities. Here in the English Bible it says corn. Corn was the native produce in America. I'm talking about America means United States of America, American continent. The only place corn was planted and eaten was in America, the continent of America. Christopher Columbus discovered America in the year 1492. That's exactly 529 years ago. When he came here, he found the American Indians, or we call them now Native Americans, whatever you want to call them. They cultivated and planted and ate some fruits and vegetables were not known anywhere in the world at that time until he found it here 529 years ago. What did he find here that the Native Americans are eating? Corn, avocados, tomatoes, potatoes, sweet potatoes, peppers, squash. That was not known anywhere in this world until 529 years ago. So he took the corn and all those vegetables and fruits, took them to Europe in the 1500, which is just, we are 2021, so that's just 521 years ago. He took all that to Europe, and from Europe it spread all over the whole world. Corn spread everywhere at that time, just 521 years ago, because corn was easy to plant and produce. The last book in the Bible was written, which is the book of Revelation, is the last book in your Bible. The book of Revelation was written by who? John, the disciple, the beloved disciple of Jesus. He wrote his book, which is the last book written in the Bible, in the year 100 AD. Corn reached Egypt 1500 AD. So between the last book in the Bible was written 100 AD, and the corn reached the Middle East and Egypt 1500 AD, 1400 years passed from the last book was written in the Bible until corn arrived to Egypt. So it cannot be corn. It could be something else. So what actually was the plant or the grain Egypt planted and eaten? The country of Egypt has been there for 5,100 years, 5,100 years. The Egyptians only make bread out of wheat, W-H-E-A-T. Pita bread is made of wheat. You come to America, what is the bread and the Hispanics eat in the United States, and Mexicans, and the people in Central American countries like Costa Rica, Guatemala, Nicaragua, El Salvador, Honduras, they eat what? Tortillas made of what? Corn, because corn is native to America, wheat is native to Egypt and Middle East. So in my Bible it says wheat. In the Spanish, remember I told you I read the Bible and studied in 3 languages. My own language was the closest thing to the Hebrew and Arabic, the same. And I studied in English, and I studied in Spanish. So in the Spanish Bible, what it says? Trigo. Trigo means wheat. Why the people of England, of course, the English Bible was translated in England, not in the United States. It's translated by people in England which are professors of language and some clergymen. These people has no idea about agriculture, those who are professors in universities, let alone what they don't know anything about what people eat and planted in Egypt. To about 1600, that's 400 years ago. At that time was not yet the age of British or English people traveling to the Middle East, to Egypt to explore. The exploration time was 100 years after that, when the English people started to be interested in the pyramids and the monuments of the pharaohs and the mummies. So there was no contact or knowledge of what the Egyptians eat or plant during Joseph's time. Remember I told you the corn was spread all over the world in 1500, and that Bible was translated in 1600. Within 100 years, corn was spread everywhere. So these people who translated the Bible to English assumed that corn, because corn was familiar everywhere, that's what they are having in Egypt. Why the Spanish people translated trigo or wheat? Spain is in Europe. Spain was occupied by the Moors, which are Arabic tribes from Saudi Arabia or the Arabian Peninsula, for 800 years. So those Arabs who occupied Spain, they know exactly what the Middle East people are eating and what Egyptians had at that time. There's another verse I will convince you that is not corn. Let us go to chapter 41 and go to verse 5, Mark. 41:5. And he, Pharaoh, slept and dreamed the second time, and behold, and pay attention to what it says here in English. Behold, 7 ears of corn came up upon one stalk, rank and good. Rank means full. 7 ears of corn. Now, I'm not a farmer, but I saw a lot of corn around, especially here in Salisbury. And all I see when it is matured, if I had on 1 ear, or maybe 2 ears, corn cobs on each plant. Did you ever hear a corn has 7 ears in one stalk? So I want to make sure before I talk to you today, I consulted and questioned 2 farmers who are members of our church. I'm not going to tell you whose names are. And I asked him a simple question. I told him, when you are harvesting corn, how many ears, how many corn cobs you find in each stalk? He said, 1. I said, how about 2? He said, yeah, 2, yeah, could be. Actually, the second one will be smaller than the first one. I said, how about 3? He said, not really. I said, do you hear anything about a corn give you 7 ears in one stalk? He said, no, of course not. So there's no way, of course, again, the people translated the Bible to English. As I said, they were English scholars of language. They have no idea about agriculture. They don't know that the corn has only produced 1 or 2 ears, never been 8. So what it says in my Bible actually about that? It says, and behold, 7 spikes came up upon one stalk. A spike is pertain and characteristic to the wheat plant. I don't know if you've ever seen a wheat plant. You see the stalk of wheat branches into 7 or 8 or 3 or 4 branches, which spikes. And those are full of what? Wheat grains. So actually, that verse tells us exactly that it was not corn. Because no way you can have a corn give you 7 ears in one stalk. So he's talking here about what? Wheat. Enough said. So anytime you see, by the way, corn is repeated many, many times in that chapters and in Bible, in the Old and the New Testament. You will see in the New Testament, the book of Acts, Paul, when was a prisoner by the Romans, they took him in ships sailing from Egypt to Rome, loaded with wheat, because the Roman Empire depended in Egypt at that time to feed their Roman population. So you will find, say, corn again. So anytime you see the word corn in the Bible, please put over the top of it wheat. And you understand now why corn should not be in the Bible. I already explained that to you. So enough said about it. Let us go, Mark, to verse 36. 41:36. Oh yeah, by the way, before I forget that, let us go, Mark, to Ezekiel chapter 4 and verse 9. Ezekiel 4:9. Ezekiel actually mentioned about bread. He was baking bread. It's called the bread of the Bible. And if the ingredients of the bread of the Bible are there, this means that it's the healthiest and the most nutritious bread you can eat. I used to eat pita bread, of course. Now I'm eating Ezekiel bread. So let us see what Ezekiel bread say. What is the ingredients of the Ezekiel bread? God is telling him, take thou also unto thee what? Wheat. But remember, when you go to buy anything from a supermarket and you look at the ingredients, the first ingredients written there is what? The most important one. Wheat and barley and beans and lentils and millet and fetches. Fetches means split wheat. And put them in one vessel and make the bread thereof. That's all I need. So where you find Ezekiel bread, you go to the supermarket and you go to the freezer section and you find that bread. I got you already here the cover of the last loaf I bought. And it is very nutritious, it's a little bit expensive, but it's worth it because, did you see corn there in that ingredients? What are the first ingredients? Is wheat. Thank you, Mark. Let's go back again to Genesis chapter 41 and verse 36. So he told him, go ahead and get 20% of each 7 years of plenteous of food and store it towards the 7 years of famine. And the food shall be for store to the land against the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, that the land perish not through the famine. When we don't have rain here for a couple of days or a weeks, we really suffer. Could you imagine no rain for 7 years? 37. And the things was good in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of all his servants. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, can we find such a one as this is? A man is whom the Spirit of God is. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, Mark right there, he is the missionary to Suriname. What the name of Joseph in your Dutch Bible? Joseph. Joseph is the right name in Hebrew because, as he explained to me, in the Dutch language, they have the same sound like in Hebrew, cha and ah. So they are very close to their names of the original names in Dutch. So what do you mean Dutch? Isn't Mark is going to Suriname? And Suriname is a small country in South America. So these people, what has to do with Dutch? Dutch is the language of the people in Holland, Netherlands. Holland is a country in Northern Europe, which is border between Germany and Belgium. So what Dutch has to do with Suriname? You say Suriname is and by the way, Suriname is a small country. They have just less than 700,000 people there. The official language of Suriname in South America is Dutch. You say, well, it's not. Why? Because Suriname was a Dutch colony, Dutch plantation, belonged to Holland, and they only just got their independence in 1975. But the official language is Dutch, but of course they have mixed languages. They have Spanish, English, mix of this and that. But the official language is Dutch. So that's why Suriname, and by the way, how come that Suriname became a Dutch colony in South America? The answer to that question, go to Mark at the end of this Sunday school class and ask him, he'll explain that to you. So Pharaoh said unto Yusuf, and in my Bible is Yusuf, in the original Bible is Yusuf, like the Dutch Bible. For as much as God has showed thee all these, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Thou shalt be over my house, and according unto thy word shall my people be ruled. Only in the throne I will be greater than thou. 41. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, see, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt. 42. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand and put it upon Joseph's hand. What does that mean? The kings of Egypt did not have a pen to sign every decree or executive order like the President of the United States does. They have a ring in their hand which has his name engraved in that ring. It's called cartouche. And when he wants to sign or approve any decree, he will stamp that decree with his ring. So by him giving that ring to Joseph, Joseph, every time he wants to write an order or decree, he does not have to go to Pharaoh to sign it, stamp it. He got the stamp of who? Pharaoh. So you understand why Pharaoh took that ring from his hand and gave it to Joseph. And arrayed him in vesture of fine linen and put a gold chain about his neck. Now, why Joseph was chosen by Pharaoh? Don't you think that Pharaoh has a lot of Egyptian officials? They are capable of doing the same plan that Joseph told him to do? Of course, a lot of them. They were very smart people. But why he chose Joseph? He did not really choose Joseph. The one who chose Joseph is God. Of course, God did not tell Pharaoh choose Joseph, but he put upon his heart Pharaoh to choose Joseph to be the one who executes the plan. Why? I don't want to be ahead of myself, but later on you will find out that during the famine, the children of Jacob, Joseph's brothers, went to Egypt to buy food, grain, wheat. If the one who was in charge was the Egyptian official, he will meet the brothers of Joseph, give them what they want, they take it and go back to Canaan. Then they run out of food, they go back again to Egypt later on, 7 years, and pay more for the grain. Sooner or later, these people, the Jacob family will run out of money. They will not have money. They cannot go to Egypt to buy any food. They will perish. You know what's meant by perishing the family of Jacob? Israel will not exist. Jesus will not have come from the tribe of Judah, which one of the brothers. So God planned it that way that Pharaoh will choose Joseph to execute the plan rather than an official Egyptian. Because Joseph, when he saw his brothers and came, and of course he knows they're going to run out of money and the 7 years of famine. His family doesn't know that. So he invited his father and his family to come back to Egypt and live there, and he took care of them. How many people from the Israelites came to Egypt? 70. When they left Egypt 430 years later, how many they were? More than 2 million. That's another story to tell. But anyway, so God's plan is to preserve his people, to have Jesus come out of them by having the Israelites come back to Egypt and live there. If they lived in the land of Canaan during the 7 years famine, they will not exist. They will be perished. Again, the Bible doesn't tell you that, but you have to stop and think about it. And what I do always, I stop and think. Why Pharaoh did not choose an Egyptian official? They have a lot of capable people to do it. Because. When I read the Bible, I study it. 43. And he made him to ride in the second chariot which he had, and they cried before him, bow the knee, and he made him ruler over the land of Egypt. 44. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in the land of Egypt. That is an Egyptian expression, and the Egyptians say something like that. No one, if you are in control of someone, no one can breathe without my permission. Of course he can breathe, but his expression that he is in total control of everything in Egypt. Now I want to stop here and say something very important. It's not in the Bible, but it's logic. When Joseph stood before Pharaoh, the butler who was in prison with Joseph, and he told Pharaoh about Joseph that he can interpret his dream, don't you think Pharaoh asked the butler, what is the crime that Joseph committed that he was in prison? So the butler said, well, he was accused of rape, attempting rape, but I believe the man was innocent. So the first thing Joseph would do when he becomes the most powerful man, second powerful man in Egypt, what he would have to do to vindicate, to clear his name before who? Pharaoh and his people. So what do you think he would do? First thing, he got Potiphar and his wife to be presented, summoned in front of Pharaoh and his court. Now, Pharaoh has a court. There's a lot of them, the elite of people were in his court. Bring Potiphar and his wife before Pharaoh and all the court, and let her confess that she is the one who invented and created that story about him trying to force her to sleep with her, but actually she is the one who did it, who wants it. Could you imagine how shameful her husband standing beside her, listening to what his wife is saying? And how shameful both of them, they were among the elite. You remember what was the job of Potiphar? Chapter 3, you don't have to go there. He was an officer of Pharaoh, a captain of the guards. He was the closest one to Pharaoh. He has a very high position. So Pharaoh would turn to Joseph and tell him, look, what do you want to do with these two people? Well, Joseph could say, well, I'm going to cut off their heads or hang him. But knowing Joseph is very merciful and kind, he will banish them, exile them to a very remote place in Egypt, probably in the border between Egypt and another country, in a very miserable place, which is pure desert, because Potiphar was an officer, a military man. So let him assign to one of those posts far away, living in misery, their life. And guess what? Before they reach that post, don't you think the people there know what happened, what these people did, that they're coming here? So shame will be and misery will follow them the rest of their life. Actually, there's a harsher punishment than cutting off their heads. The Bible didn't say that. I never heard any Sunday school teacher said anything about the fate of Potiphar and his wife. Again, you stop and think. Well, he wants to Joseph have to vindicate himself and clear his name before Pharaoh. So he got these people to confess that it's not his crime, it was a crime of what? That woman. Again, stop and think and question and ask yourself. And that's how you study the Bible. 45. Now Pharaoh has to reward Joseph with something. 45. And Pharaoh called Joseph, 45. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Safnat Va'nig. Safnat Va'nig is an old Egyptian language, means revealer of secret things. Revealer, because he revealed the dream of Pharaoh to him. So Safnat Va'nig or Fa'nig is revealer of secret things. Thus he called his name that way. And he gave him to a wife, Asenat, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On. Asenat, what Asenat means in Old Egyptian? She belongs to her father. She is her father's favorite daughter, that way you say. Asenat, the father of Asenath is the high priest of the highest order in Egypt. He was the top of the elite. So he cannot get a wife to Joseph higher in aristocratic elite family than the daughter of the high priest of Egypt. I mean, he cannot get higher than that. And Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt. 46. And Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh. Stop. How old Joseph was when he left his house? Remember? 17 years old. Was a teenager. When he stood before Pharaoh, was 30 years old. So how many years between the time he left his house in Canaan until he stood in front of Pharaoh? 13 years. 13 years you divide in between when he was working in Potiphar's house and the time he spent in jail. We don't know how many years in each one, but he is now 30 years old, full-grown man. 46 again, and Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Pharaoh, king of Egypt, the people who just came today before then, haven't been here before. Pharaoh is not a name of a king in Egypt. Pharaoh is a title. Like you, king, the only kings in any country called king of Spain, king of Italy, king of, but Pharaoh is only pertain to the kings of Egypt. Pharaoh in old Egyptian language means great house. Like when you refer to the president of the United States, you say what? White House? Great house. So Pharaoh, king of Egypt, there are two titles, Pharaoh and king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went throughout all the land of Egypt. In the 7 years, plenteous years, the earth brought full by handfuls. And he gathered up all the food of the 7 years which were in the land of Egypt, and laid up the food in the cities, the food of the field which was round about every city, laid he up the same. Let me repeat that verse again, because that's a unique way the Egyptians, since the beginning of their country 5,100 years ago until today, how they feed their people and how they store their food. And of course, the best one who can tell you that is the one standing in front of you here, because I know what's going on there. So let me read it again and put Mark or Nathan the map of Egypt, please. 48 again, and he gathered up all the food of the 7 years which were in the land of Egypt, and laid up the food in the cities, the food of the field, which was round about every city, laid he up the same. What mean but he gathered the food from the field which is around every city? Here's the map of Egypt, and the river Nile goes through the land of Egypt from south north. What means south north? Because the river Nile flew from south north. Not many rivers in the world that they flow that way. And then it comes here, it branches into branches. This area here is the richest and most fertile piece of land in whole earth at that time. That's what they get. A lot of wheat was planted there. Just like the breadbasket of the whole world was this here. Like United States Midwest is the breadbasket of the whole world today. So the river Nile, as you see, goes through the land of Egypt. So the fields and farms are next to the bank of the river Nile. Why? Because the farmers will have water wheels drawn by donkeys or cow or mule or ox, lifting up the water with the water wheel and pour it into their land to water it. Next to their land of the fields or the place where they are planted cities, every city has its own fields, its own plants, its own food around about them. So every city in Egypt, until today, since the beginning until now, each city has its own food around it from the fields and the land around it. So every city in Egypt is self-sufficient. It's not like here in the United States, like here in Salisbury, you get oranges from Florida and from California. You get bananas from Colombia and Ecuador. You get pineapples from Costa Rica. You get grapes from California or from Chile. You get avocados from Mexico. No. Everything that city needed to eat and drink is right there around their city. So the farmers, since the beginning of antiquity, they will take their product, fruits, vegetables, grain, animal products like geese, guts, chicken, rabbits, pigeons, whatever. Take it early in the morning, it's next door. Take it to the city and sell it there in open farm market, like we have here farm markets in some places. So what you do, the people will go and buy fresh food, organic. It's just coming out from the field the night before. Of course, now they have supermarkets there. But many people don't like supermarkets because they like packaged things. They will still go and depend on those farmers who come in the morning and sell their product. Fresh. You cannot get fresher than that. Eggs is just only collected the night before. So people would like to go to these farmers and buy their food until today. So you understand now, I'm going to repeat again. Thank you, Mark. Let us go back to verse 38. And he gathered up all the food of the 7 years which were in the land of Egypt, and laid up the food in the cities. He got all the food, all the grains in silos, in big houses in the cities. Why? Because the food of the field, which was what? Round about every city. And he up in the same. So you understand now that every city has its own self-sufficient food for the 7 years. Drought. 49. And Joseph gathered wheat at the sand of the sea very much until he left numbering, for it was without number. The people who invented mathematics were the ancient Egyptians. By them leaving number, because they couldn't number anymore, that they ran out of numbers. 50. And unto Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of famine came, which Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, bare unto him. And Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh. Stop. Manasseh is Hebrew word, actually in my Bible, means Nasa, means to forget. And that's what it says right there. Firstborn Manasseh, for God said he what? Has made me what? Forget all my toil and all my father's house. Why he wants to forget his father's house? All he got there is troubles and pain, and you want to kill him. 52. And the name of the second called he Ephraim. Ephraim, for God has caused me to what? Fruitful. So Ephraim means fruitful in the land of my affliction. And the 7 years of plenteous that was in the land of Egypt were ended, and the 7 year of dearth began to come, according to as Joseph had said. What dearth means? Wanting, deficiency, lacking. 54. And the 7 years of dearth began to come, according to as Joseph has said, and the dearth was on the land, in all the lands. He's not talking about the land of Egypt. He's talking about all the countries round about Egypt. You're going to find that in a minute. 54. And the 7 years of dearth began to come, according as Joseph had said, and the dearth was all in all lands, but in all the land of Egypt there was what? Bread. Bread was made from wheat. Tortillas made from corn. Remember that. Oh yeah, by the way, they said, don't they have corn now in Egypt? Of course they have it. But you know who eats corn in Egypt? Animals. They feed it to domestic animals. Egyptians don't eat corn. Sometime they will eat corn in the cob, but they have to grill it over charcoal. And sometimes they eat popcorn, but it's not common there. 55. And when all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread. Why bread? Why always bread? Why it says always bread in the Bible? Because the people in the Middle East, the most important diet they eat is bread. Bread with something or bread with nothing. Pita bread, of course. Or also they have in Egypt, like the Hawaiian bread we have here, which is a very thick bread. They stuff that so-called Hawaiian bread, sometimes with eggs, meat, cheese, raisins, figs, dates. So actually it is a full meal. So bread was not only bread by its bread. it has something inside. So that's why bread is called here in the Bible everywhere. So imagine that bread is not only bread by itself, it is also stuffed with something else. 55, and when all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread. And Joseph said unto all the Egyptians, Go unto Joseph, what he said to you, do. And the famine was over all the face of the earth. When I told you it's not only in Egypt, the whole earth was famine. There was no rain anywhere. And Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold unto the Egyptians, and the famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt. And all the countries came into Egypt to Joseph for to buy. You see the word corn there was written in a different kind of printing in your Bible. I had it that way. Why it is not the same kind of print like the other, because corn actually, that word corn did not exist in the original. It says in the original, and all the countries came into Egypt to Joseph to buy, because that the famine was so sore in all the lands. Why the English translators put corn? You have to understand that every language has its composition of words and sentences are different. So if you leave it there without putting corn, it will not be correct in English language. And that's why they put corn, which is supposed to be wheat. So that's why you see the corn in that verse is a different font or different printing. Now 42:1. And it came to pass when Jacob, who is Jacob? The father of Joseph in the land of Canaan. So that there was that was what? Wheat in Egypt. Jacob said unto his sons, the 10 sons he got, Why don't you look upon yourself? Why do you look at yourselves, each other? And he said, Behold, I have heard that there is corn, wheat in Egypt. Get you down thither and buy for us from thence, that we may live and not die. Down. Underline the word down. Why he said down? Because Egypt is south of Canaan. So the geography in the Bible is perfect. Down means south. And that's what he said, down. And Joseph, 10 brethren, underline 10 brethren, went down to buy wheat in Egypt. Why 10? Don't you say they were 12? Joseph was 1, and his brother Benjamin was number 2. His brother, and then 10 brothers came from. Remember, Jacob married 4 women. 3 of them he married by force or was coerced he was forced to marry him. There was no love affair between him and these 3 women. The only one who was love of his life was Rachel, the mother of Joseph and Benjamin. He lost Joseph, so he will not let Benjamin go with his 10 wicked brothers to Egypt. He might lose him. He lost already Joseph. They told him he died. He was eaten by a beast. He didn't have they didn't have the dignity, these 10 brothers, that Jacob did not have the opportunity or the chance to bury his son. He told him he was eaten by a beast. Show how mean those 10 brothers. And that's why I said, and Joseph, 10 brethren, went down to buy wheat in Egypt. So he kept who? He kept Benjamin with him. He doesn't want to lose him. By the way, his love of his life, Rachel, died when she was giving birth to Benjamin. Read it in the Bible. So he lost the beloved wife. He has to contend with the other 3 women he has with him. And then he had to raise who? Orphans. Joseph and Benjamin. He lost Joseph. He doesn't want to lose Benjamin. He lost his wife. He lost one of his beloved sons of Rachel. So he will not allow Benjamin to go with the other 10 brothers. And that's why the Bible is very, very clear that he sent what? 10 brethren. But Benjamin, here it is. It is just verse 4. But Benjamin, Joseph's brother, because the other 10 brothers are half-brothers. The only brother of Joseph is Benjamin, but Benjamin, Joseph's brother, Jacob sinned not with his brethren, for he said, what? Lest peradventure mischief befall him. He lost his brother, Joseph. He doesn't want to lose also Benjamin. If he loses Benjamin, he would die. And the sons of Israel came to buy wheat among those that came, for the famine was in the land of Canaan. And Joseph was the governor over the land, and it was that sold to all the people of the land. Stop. Remember when I told you why God chosen Joseph to be in charge of selling? Because his brothers will come before him and he will save his family. If it was an Egyptian official, and I'm repeating myself, the official Egyptian, he will sell the food to his brothers, Joseph's brothers, go home, come back again, buy more, run out of money, they cannot go to Egypt anymore, they will die. Everybody will die. And that's why it is, again, verse 6 is really incredible. And Joseph was the governor over the land, and it was that sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brethren came, and what did they do? Bowed down, kneeled themselves before him with their faces to the earth. You could bow down by kneeling, but to put your face in the earth means what? They touch their forehead with the ground. You remember when they mocked him when he dreamed the dream that they will come one day and kneel before him and said, oh, let us kill him. Let's see that dream will come true. It happened exactly as he said. And I like it because he said not only bow down themselves, with their faces to the earth. I mean, you cannot get more than that bowing. And Joseph saw his brethren, and he knew them, but made himself strange unto them, and spake roughly unto them, and he said unto them, whence come ye? And they said, from the land of Canaan to buy food. And Joseph knew his brethren, but they knew not him. We're going to stop at there. Why did they know him? Joseph is now how old he is. He's not 30. The years of plenty was 7 years. So it's 37. And then say, for instance, the Israelites at that time, Jacob has enough food in the famine the first year, so he sent his sons the second year. 30 years when they stood before Pharaoh, 7 years plenteous, so 37 years old. 1 year later when he saw his brothers, so how old was he? 38 years. He left 17 years old. So how many years passed? 21? So it's completely different. Plus, of course, he was looking different. The Egyptians at the time, they had some kind of costumes and things that they are very elegant. And now something else. You cannot look at the face of the ruler. If you look at his face, you die. So these people, when they come bound themselves, and when they look to that governor, they don't look at his face. They have to have their faces down. They cannot look at him in the eye. And that's why they did not know him. Of course, with the age and also the custom at that time, you don't look at the governor right in his face. Plus, he was 38 years old. I'm going to stop there. Thank you very much. We'll continue the story later next time. Thank you, Mark and Nathan, for taking care of that.